A stop at the wrong gas station. A drive to remember. Los Angeles was alive with flashing lights and endless traffic. But tonight, Keanu Reeves and Sandra Bullock had chosen a different route. Instead of braving the congestion of Hollywood Boulevard, they had taken the coastal highway, a peaceful, scenic drive along the Pacific. Keanu's red Ferrari glided smoothly over pavement, the roar of the engine blending with the sound of crashing waves. The golden hues of the sunset stretched across the sky, painting the moment in perfection. Sandra, sitting in the passenger seat, glanced over at him with a smirk. "I'm getting major déjà vu right now." Keanu chuckled, keeping his eyes on the road. "At least this time, we don't have a bus about to explode." Sandra folded her arms, raising an eyebrow. "Which makes me wonder, have you actually gotten better at driving since then?" Keanu feigned offense. "Are you saying I don't know how to drive?" "I just remember that in Speed, my character had to take the wheel because you were too busy dealing with terrorists." Keanu let out a short laugh. "Well, at least now we're just heading to charity gala. No bad guys in sight." Sandra smirked. "Never say that too soon." And as if the universe was listening, a warning flashed on the dashboard. Low fuel level. Keanu frowned. Speaking of problems. Sandra glanced at the fuel gauge and laughed. "Don't tell me you forgot to refuel." Keanu sighed. "Let's just say I was too busy enjoying the moment." Sandra pointed ahead. "Lucky for you, there's a gas station right there." Keanu followed her gaze and spotted a small, run-down station by the side of the road. It was one of those places that seemed frozen in time. Flickering neon signs, cracked pavement, and a tiny convenience store with a rusted metal roof. The kind of place that most people would drive past without a second thought. Keanu slowed down and pulled into the station, the Ferrari's engine humming softly before shutting off. Sandra stretched and took off her sunglasses. "Since we're stopping, I'm grabbing a coffee." Keanu nodded. "I'll fill up the car. See you inside." Sandra stepped out and walked toward the convenience store. And at that exact moment, they were noticed, the bikers, leaning against two black motorcycles. Two men watched from a distance. They weren't your typical travelers. The first biker was a huge man with a thick beard and tattooed arms. He wore a weathered leather jacket with metal chains wrapped around his wrists. The second biker was leaner, with a crooked grin and a gold tooth that gleamed under the gas station lights. His hands were stuffed inside his jacket pockets. The moment Sandra walked past them, something changed. The big guy whistled softly. Well, look at this." The second biker chuckled, his gold tooth flashing. "Hollywood, huh? Don't see that every day." The big man's eyes stayed locked on Sandra as she entered the store, completely unaware of their presence. But the bikers never took their eyes off her. The gold-toothed biker licked his lips. "Maybe we should go introduce ourselves." His friend smirked, and without hesitation, they started walking toward the store. They thought they had found an easy target. What they didn't know was that Keanu Reeves was right there, watching their every move. Keanu's warning signs. Outside, Keanu finished fueling the Ferrari, but his eyes remained fixed on the glass window of the store, and what he saw made his expression darken. The two bikers had followed Sandra inside. The big one walked with slow, deliberate steps, cracking his knuckles as if he had all the time in the world. The leaner one stayed slightly behind, hands still tucked in his jacket, his body language tense, calculating. Keanu's instincts kicked in immediately. Years of experience, on movie sets and training and in life, had taught him how to recognize a problem before it even started. These guys weren't just curious. They were hunting. But Keanu didn't move. Not yet. Because sometimes the best thing to do isn't to react immediately. It's to wait. Observe. And that's exactly what he was going to do. Inside the store. Sandra was focused on pouring herself a cup of coffee when she heard footsteps behind her. She frowned slightly and glanced at the reflection in the coffee machine's glass. The two men were there. The big guy leaned against the counter beside her, acting casual, as if he had just happened to stop there. The leaner one stood a little further back, but his eyes never left her. Sandra didn't show discomfort right away. She was used to being recognized in public places. So when the big guy spoke, she didn't immediately assume the worst. Well, Look who we have here. Hollywood in person. Sandra turned around slowly, holding her cup of coffee. She forced a polite smile. Guess I've been spotted. The gold-toothed biker let out a low chuckle, scanning her from head to toe. And what brings a woman like you to a place like this? Sandra kept her tone light. Just grabbing some coffee while my friend fuels up outside. The big guy raised an eyebrow. Left you all alone in here? Doesn't seem very safe. Sandra let out a short laugh. I think I'll be just fine. She grabbed a lid for her coffee and prepared to leave, but then the skinny biker stepped sideways, subtly blocking her path. Whoa, already leaving. But we just started talking. Sandra kept her expression composed, but her body was on alert now. Outside, Keanu Reeves' expression hardened. He saw the way the bikers positioned themselves. He saw the slight shift in Sandra's posture, and he knew she had realized the situation. But for now, he still didn't move, because he wanted to be sure, to see just how far these two were willing to take it. The moment, everything changed. Sandra tried stepping sideways, but the skinny biker mirrored her movement, keeping her cornered. The big guy grinned, leaning in slightly closer. Bet you're used to dealing with rude guys in Hollywood. Huh? But we're real gentlemen around here. Sandra's grip tightened around her coffee cup. Now she knew this wasn't just a conversation. She kept her voice calm but firm. If you're a gentleman, then I'm sure you wouldn't mind letting me through. The skinny guy's grin widened. Of course, but before you go, how about a little toast? And then he reached out and grabbed her arm. Sandra froze. And at that exact moment, Keanu Reeves stepped away from his position and began walking toward the store. Slow, controlled, but now ready to act. What happens next? How will Keanu handle the situation? Will the bikers realize who they're dealing with? What happens when the encounter takes a dangerous turn? Chapter 2, The Wrong Target. The moment everything changed. The metal bell above the convenience store door jingled as Keanu Reeves stepped inside. His movements were calm, controlled, but deliberate. The wooden floor creaked under his boots as he took slow, measured steps towards Sandra and the two bikers. And in that moment, the entire atmosphere of the store shifted. The store clerk, a skinny kid wearing a backward cap, froze in place, sensing the sudden change in tension. Sandra, who had been keeping her composure, felt a shift in the air. And most importantly, the bikers felt it too. The skinny one, still gripping Sandra's arm, suddenly went stiff. The bigger one, who had been grinning moments before, uncrossed his arms and took a small step back. They hadn't noticed him before. They noticed him now. Keanu didn't say a word. He just stopped a few feet away, his hands relaxed at his sides, his face unreadable. For a long second, no one moved. Then the gold-toothed biker finally spoke, trying to sound casual. Hey, look at this. Hollywood's got bodyguards now. He forced a smirk, but his voice wasn't as confident as before. Keanu's gaze flicked to Sandra's arm. Then his voice, low and calm, cut through the silence. Let her go. A silent battle. The skinny biker hesitated. For a split second, it was clear he was debating his next move. If he let go, he looked weak in front of his friend. If he didn't, he had no idea what would happen next. The big guy shifted uncomfortably. He knew something was off. Sandra felt the grip on her arm loosen slightly. But Keanu didn't break eye contact. I don't repeat myself, he said, his tone flat but dangerous. The skinny biker's smirk faltered. And then he let go. Sandra took a slow step back, rubbing her wrist. But Keanu wasn't finished. His eyes moved to the bigger biker. Now, you're both going to apologize. The store clerk's mouth dropped open. Sandra blinked. Did she just hear that right? The gold-toothed biker scoffed. Are you serious, man? Keanu didn't flinch. Apologize. Now. The bigger biker's jaw clenched. He wasn't used to being told what to do. But there was something about the way Keanu stood there, completely unshaken, that made him hesitate. The skinny biker forced a smirk. I think you're taking this a little too seriously, man. Relax. Keanu took a step forward. Just one step. But it was enough. The two bikers instinctively shifted back. It was subtle, but Keanu noticed. And the bikers noticed that he noticed. The big guy exhaled sharply and muttered toward Sandra. "Sorry." Keanu tilted his head slightly. "Louder." The big guy clenched his fists. His pride was boiling over, but he knew there was no winning this. He inhaled deeply and, through gritted teeth, said it louder. "I'm sorry." Sandra crossed her arms. That was pathetic. Keanu didn't react. He just nodded, satisfied. But before they could walk away, the bigger biker glared at him, and he said something that made Sandra's stomach turn. "This ain't over." Keanu didn't blink. He just watched them walk out of the store and back to their bikes. The sound of their motorcycles roaring to life filled the gas station. Then, finally, they were gone. Sandra let out a long breath, only now realizing how tense she had been. Keanu watched her for a moment. "You okay?" She let out a half laugh, still catching her breath. "Yeah, just didn't expect my coffee stop to turn into an action scene." The store clerk finally found his voice. "Dude, that was insane." Keanu didn't answer. His eyes were still on the parking lot, because deep down, he knew this wasn't over yet. A warning left behind. Keanu stepped outside first, scanning the surroundings. The sun was still high, the gas station still empty. But then he stopped. Sandra noticed his hesitation as she stepped out behind him. "What is it?" Keanu didn't answer right away. He just looked around. The parking lot seemed empty, but something was different. Sandra followed his gaze, and then she saw it. Lying next to Ferrari's front wheel was a black motorcycle helmet, tossed carelessly. It hadn't been there before. Keanu narrowed his eyes. Sandra felt a chill run down her spine. "Did they forget it?" she asked, already knowing the answer. Keanu took a slow step forward, eyeing the object. He didn't pick it up. He just stared at it. There was nothing inside. No note, no message. But he didn't need words to understand what this meant. Sandra swallowed hard. She wasn't naive. Leaving something behind like this wasn't an accident. It was a warning, a silent message. Keanu finally moved. He ignored the helmet and opened the car door. "Let's go." Sandra didn't argue. She got in quickly. Keanu took one last look around. Then, without another word, he started the engine. The Ferrari's powerful roar cut through the eerie silence of the gas station. They pulled away slowly. And behind them, the helmet remained there, untouched, like someone was waiting to see what they would do with it. They drove in silence for a few minutes. Then Sandra finally spoke. "Do you think that was on purpose?" Keanu kept his eyes on the road. His voice was calm but firm. "Yes." Sandra ran a hand through her hair, trying to process. "But why? If they wanted to do something, wouldn't it have been easier back there?" Keanu gripped the steering wheel a little tighter. Some guys don't act right away. They wait for the right moment. Sandra didn't like that answer. She glanced at the rear-view mirror, and that's when her heart dropped. Back on the road, in the distance, something was coming toward them. Something fast. 2 motorcycles. Sandra felt her stomach twist, because now there was no doubt they were being followed. What happens next? Why are the bikers following them? Will Keanu be able to protect Sandra on the open road? How far will this encounter go? Stay tuned for Chapter 3, where the tension explodes into a high-speed chase. If you're enjoying this story, don't forget to like, comment, and follow the channel for more thrilling stories. Chapter 3, The Highway Showdown. A dangerous shadow. The red Ferrari roared down the open highway, the Pacific Ocean stretching endlessly to their right, the golden sky dimming into twilight. Sandra sat stiffly in the passenger seat, her grip tightening on the armrest. Keanu's voice was calm, but firm. "They're following us." In the rear-view mirror, 2 motorcycles trailed at a calculated distance. Not too close. Not too far. Just enough to be noticed. Sandra swallowed hard. "Keanu, tell me I'm imagining this." Keanu took another quick glance at the mirror. "You're not." Her pulse spiked. "What do they want?" Keanu didn't answer immediately. His fingers tightened around the steering wheel. He already knew. Some guys don't let things go. Some guys need to prove something. And the way these bikers were tracking their every move, this wasn't over. Not even close. A calculated move. Keanu took a deep breath. If they tried to speed up too much, it would draw unwanted attention. If they slowed down, the bikers would get closer. It was a waiting game. Sandra exhaled slowly. What do we do? Keanu's eyes flickered to the upcoming road signs. A few miles ahead, the highway split. One route led toward more isolated terrain, a stretch of winding coastal roads with sharp turns. The other led back toward the city. He made a decision. In a calculated move, he slightly reduced speed. He wanted to see what the bikers would do. Sandra noticed instantly. You're testing them. Keanu nodded. If they just pass us, we're fine. If they match our speed. His voice trailed off. Sandra turned back to the mirror. The bikers slowed down. 2. Exactly at the same pace. Sandra held her breath. Keanu's jaw clenched. That's our answer. A road with no exit. Up ahead, the highway exit approached. Keanu's grip on the wheel tightened. He flicked the turn signal, making it look casual. Then, at the very last second, he jerked the wheel hard right. The Ferrari swerved onto the exit ramp, leaving the main highway and diving onto a narrow, winding coastal road. Sandra gritted her teeth as the car hugged the tight turn, tires skidding slightly before gripping the pavement. She turned back to look. The bikers followed. Immediately, Sandra's stomach twisted. They took the bait. The chase begins. Keanu exhaled sharply, eyes locked on the road ahead. No traffic, no exits, just miles of twisting turns. Not great for Ferrari, but for motorcycles? Perfect. Sandra turned to him. Keanu, tell me you have a plan. Keanu didn't respond, because right now he was focused. The bikers were closing in. The leaner one with the gold tooth took the right side, inching dangerously close to Ferrari. The bigger one stayed behind, waiting, watching. Keanu knew what they were doing, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Sandra saw the gold-toothed biker smirking, one hand gripping the handlebar, the other reaching into his jacket. Her heart stopped. Keanu, he's pulling something out. Keanu's gaze snapped to the side mirror, and that's when he saw it. A chain, a thick, rusted metal chain, wrapped around the biker's gloved hand. And in one swift motion, he swung it, straight at the Ferrari's windshield. Keanu's countermove. Everything slowed. The chain spun through the air, heading straight for the glass. Sandra gasped. Keanu's hands moved faster than thought. He jerked the wheel left. The Ferrari swerved sharply just in time. The chain missed the windshield by inches, slamming onto the pavement instead. Sandra exhaled sharply. They're insane. Keanu's voice was calm but cold. Yeah. The bigger biker accelerated, now right on their tail. Keanu's mind worked fast. The road was too narrow for sudden stops. The bikers were trying to push them into making a mistake. He had to turn the tables. Fast. Turning the tables. Keanu's foot hovered over the brake pedal. Sandra caught the movement. What are you? Keanu spoke without looking at her. Hold on. And then he slammed the brakes. The Ferrari screeched, tires gripping the pavement as the car slowed down abruptly. The big biker behind them reacted too late. His bike jerked forward, almost slamming into the back of the Ferrari. At the last second, he swerved violently, barely avoiding collision, but he lost control. His motorcycle skidded sideways, tires screeching as he fought to regain balance. Keanu saw his chance. He floored the accelerator. The Ferrari shot forward like a bullet, leaving the bigger biker struggling behind. Now, only one remained. The gold-toothed biker. Sandra turned to Keanu. What now? Keanu's lips pressed into a tight line. We finished this. The final move. The lean biker tried to close in again, now on the left side of the car. Keanu waited. Sandra saw the biker grinning, ready to strike again. Then Keanu made his move. With perfect precision, he cut the wheel slightly right. It wasn't a sharp move. It wasn't reckless. But to the biker, it looked like an attack. Instinctively, he jerked his handlebars, but he was going too fast. His bike wobbled. His tires hit a rough patch of gravel. And suddenly, he lost control. Sandra watched in shock as the biker skidded sideways, his motorcycle veering off the road. And then, crash! The bike slammed into the guardrail, flipping into the dirt. Sandra whipped around, her pulse racing. Keanu kept driving. He didn't look back. He didn't need to. It was over. The aftermath. They drove in silence for a few miles. Sandra checked the rearview mirror. No bikers. No more threats. She let out a shaky breath. I think it's over. Keanu kept his eyes on the road. His voice was calm but certain. For now. Sandra exhaled, running a hand through her hair. I can't believe that just happened. Keanu finally smirked. I told you, never say no bad guys in sight too soon. Sandra laughed breathlessly. But deep down, she knew this wasn't over yet. Because guys like that, they don't like losing. And something told her they weren't done. What happens next? Will the bikers come back for revenge? What does Keanu plan to do if they show up again? Is the real danger still ahead? Chapter 4, The Final Warning. Arrival at the charity gala. The red Ferrari pulled into the grand entrance of the Beverly Hills Hotel, where the charity gala was already in full swing. Cameras flashed. Reporters shouted. Celebrities in designer suits and gowns filled the entrance. It was a world of wealth, elegance, and polished smiles. But inside the Ferrari, the tension was still thick. Sandra took a deep breath. We made it. Keanu didn't answer right away. His hand still rested on the wheel, his eyes flicking to the rear-view mirror. The high-speed chase was behind them. The bikers had been left in the dust. But something still didn't sit right. Sandra studied him. Keanu. He finally turned to her, his expression unreadable. Let's go inside. But Sandra knew that he wasn't convinced it was over. Neither was she. A scratch that meant war. The hotel valet opened Keanu's door, but as he stepped out, his sharp eyes caught something. A deep scratch along the side of Ferrari. Sandra saw it too. Her stomach dropped. It hadn't been there before. Keanu ran his fingers over the fresh scrape. Deliberate. Precise. It wasn't from the chase. Someone had done this on purpose. Sandra whispered, They found us. Keanu's jaw tightened. A valet hesitated nearby. Sir, do you? Keanu raised a hand. It's fine. But it wasn't fine. This wasn't about the car. It was a message, and he got it loud and clear. Inside the gala, an unfinished battle. The moment they stepped inside, the atmosphere shifted. Flashing cameras. Luxury chandeliers. The murmur of Hollywood's elite clinking glasses of expensive champagne. Keanu and Sandra were instantly surrounded by familiar faces, greeting them warmly. But Sandra could feel it. His focus was elsewhere. Keanu scanned the crowd. The exits. The shadows. Because he knew how guys like those bikers operated. They weren't just reckless thugs. They had followed him here. A face in the crowd. Sandra was mid-conversation with the director when she saw Keanu suddenly tense. His body language changed. His posture straightened. His eyes locked onto something in the distance. Sandra turned to follow his gaze. And then she saw them. At the far end of the ballroom, near the exit doors, stood two men, dressed in suits now, cleaned up. But Sandra recognized them immediately. The bikers. Her heart pounded. Keanu exhaled slowly. They're smarter than I thought. Sandra whispered, What do we do? Keanu didn't answer, because the big one was already moving, walking straight toward them. The final warning. The ballroom noise seemed to fade as the man stopped in front of Keanu. No fists, no weapons, just a smile. But Keanu saw through it. The big guy adjusted his suit, his deep voice smooth but dripping with mockery. Nice party. Fancy crowd. Didn't think we'd run into you here. Sandra stiffened. Keanu's expression didn't change. You made your point. Now leave. The biker chuckled. You embarrassed us, Reeves. That's a problem. Sandra felt the hairs on her neck rise. Keanu's voice was dangerously low. I don't care what your problem is. The big guy leaned in slightly. See, people like you're used to getting away with things. But the thing about guys like us, we don't forget. Sandra's hands clenched. She knew where this was going. Keanu exhaled sharply. Then he smiled, but it wasn't friendly. It was the kind of smile that made men second-guess their choices. And then Keanu took a step forward. His voice lowered even further. "You think you're scary?" The biker's smirk twitched. Keanu tilted his head slightly. "Let me tell you something about me." Sandra held her breath. Keanu's voice was calm, slow, unshaken. "I don't start fights. I don't look for trouble." His eyes locked onto bikers. "But if you bring it to me..." The air shifted. The biker's fingers curled into fists. Keanu didn't blink. "I finish it." Silence. The tension was suffocating. Then the biker's smirk faltered. He glanced at the second guy, the lean one, who suddenly looked nervous. Keanu didn't move. Sandra saw it first, a flicker of doubt in the biker's eyes. Then the hesitation. He took a slow step back. The smile was gone. Keanu had won, without throwing a single punch. The end of the road. The big guy exhaled sharply, forcing a chuckle. "You got lucky today, Reeves." Keanu didn't flinch. "No, you did." The biker's jaw tightened, but he knew it was over. He nodded once, then turned and walked away, the other one scrambling to follow. Sandra exhaled slowly. That was... Keanu relaxed his shoulders. "Handled." Sandra shook her head, laughing lightly. "And you didn't even have to throw a punch." Keanu smirked. "Sometimes, the best fights are the ones you never have to start." The final toast. The rest of the night went on as planned. The charity raised millions. Sandra and Keanu mingled, laughed, and celebrated. But in the back of Keanu's mind, he knew the right people had gotten the right message. And some battles aren't fought with fists. They're won in silence. Sandra raised her glass to him at the end of the night. To a night we'll never forget. Keanu smiled, clinking glasses, to never stopping for gas at a random station again. Sandra laughed. And just like that, the night was finally over. The lesson: real strength isn't about fighting. It's about knowing when to stand your ground. Some people need a warning before they make a mistake they can't undo. And most importantly, never say no bad guys in sight too soon. Because sometimes the real danger isn't the fight itself. It's what comes after. The end. If you love this story, don't forget to like, comment, and follow the channel for more thrilling stories. Disclaimer: the stories presented on this channel are entirely fictional and crafted solely for entertainment. Any resemblance to real events, individuals, or situations is purely coincidental and unintentional. These narratives are not intended to depict, reference, or represent any actual occurrences, persons, or entities.